Hi everyone, my name's Janice Wallace and I'm going to be your instructor in the Gender and Educational Leadership course. You'll have to excuse my COVID-19 hair. I am now, I think, three haircuts past due, but I'm sure many of you are in the same boat in more ways than this. This is certainly an unusual time, and I know that for many of you, you're working very hard just to keep up with teaching your classes online, and your children are learning at home, and all kinds of strange and wonderful things are happening during this pandemic time. So I want you to know that as we go through the course, and I will recognize that there will be some issues that may come up for you, and please feel free to talk to me about them. We want to get through this together. We want to enjoy this together, and whatever I can do to make that happen, I'm more than happy to do. So I just want to put that out there right to begin with. I wanted to tell you just a little bit about myself, about the course, so that you'll have a little bit of a context before we get going. I have been a teacher for many, many years. In fact, I started teaching when I was 18 years old, because in those days, and I'm really dating myself here, but in those days, in Ontario at least, you didn't have to go to Teachers College. It was called Teachers College then, except for a year after grade 13. So that's what I did. And off I went and taught these poor kids. And I had a wonderful time. I hope they did too. I think they did. And it was a profession that I immediately fell in love with. I came to it with a grandmother who had been a teacher, an aunt who had been a teacher, a sister who became a teacher, so I guess it's in the blood. But it is something that I have enjoyed for many years now at various levels of the system. I was an elementary teacher in London, Ontario, and when I first began, and that's where I went to Teachers College. And then I moved to Toronto, and I worked there for several years. And then I was married, had children, moved, all kinds of things were happening, and I ended up in the United States. Didn't have the kind of credentials to be able to teach there. And so I did other kinds of things that were teaching related until I found myself needing to get back to Canada. And I had two children to raise, and I tried to get a teaching job. And there were no teaching jobs at that time, even though I had lots of friends in the system who were hoping that they could find me something, but there just wasn't anything available. And so I ended up talking to a friend over at a coffee clutch kind of thing. And her husband was working with the Department of Indian Affairs. And she said, well, there might be something in one of the schools there. And that turned into, one of those life-changing moments, really. And so I did apply for a job in a school not too far away from where I lived, about a half an hour away. The first job I didn't get because quite honestly, I had no idea what I was talking about in terms of Indigenous education, as most teachers didn't at the time. But the second job I did, and I entered into this world that really took me out of my comfort zone. And over time, I began to really ask myself some critical questions around how it is that power works in organizations, particularly educational organizations. How is it that we can make learning a more accessible experience, and one that's more culturally grounded? And so over a period of time, those are the kinds of questions that I began to pursue. So I decided to go back to school, and I did my master's at Western. And I began to teach there as well. And I found that this was something that I really quite enjoyed, the opportunity to learn and teach at the same time, although teaching, of course, is always learning. But I really enjoyed that whole kind of experience, and working with adult students who were learning to become teachers, working with them out in the schools, working with them at the faculty, and so on. So I decided, after a lot of discussion, to go on and do my PhD. In a million years, this would not have been what I had thought I would be doing, but here I was, and off I went to OISE. I had some scholarships to support me, and I was at the University of Toronto, and I had a wonderful time working through the whole process of coming to my research question, pursuing my research question, and then having it published. And so that whole experience was great. But in the meantime, I actually got a full-time tenure track position at Western. I pursued that for a while and I really enjoyed it. I had wonderful friends there who really had been encouraging me throughout my doctorate and continued to encourage me as academic colleagues and friends. But my children have moved west, and I decided that maybe that would be something I should do too. It was time for a little adventure in life. And so off I went. I applied for a job at the University of Alberta. I would have been happy to stay in London, to be honest. But I went and it was just an interesting experience as far as I was concerned. And then I ended up getting the job. And here I found myself in Edmonton, a city I knew very little about other than it was cold. But it was cold in southwestern Ontario too most of the winter. So that was nothing new, except it was a little bit colder and a little bit drier, a lot drier. And so I spent about 14 years at the University of Alberta. And during that time, I worked in the Department of Educational Policy Studies, working with students at the master's and doctoral level. And I also, for about 4 of those years, I was an associate dean, working with undergraduate student services, particularly looking at program renewal. So, among many other things. So that was how I spent my time at the University of Alberta, and it was an absolutely wonderful experience as well. So I've really had this remarkable opportunity to pursue teaching at various levels in various cities, in various countries, and with learners with various kinds of needs, and that has made a very rich kind of professional journey for me. So here I am, I'm retired, I'm living in Victoria now. During the time I was at the University of Toronto, I used to come out here and teach in the summers, partly to kind of pay my way, but also because I just love being here. And I always thought it would be nice to retire here, and here I find myself with the opportunity to do that. So here I am enjoying much milder winters, healthier for me because of some health issues that I have. And I just find myself living a very interesting life with my daughter nearby, my son in Calgary, and an hour and a half away by WestJet. So it's been a great life. When I was asked to teach this course, I had to think about how I was going to organize it. The title is Gender and Leadership in Education, and I took it from the perspective of what would a leader need to be aware of in the kind of work that they do in order to be able to be sensitive to and active around issues of gender and how they manifest themselves in educational settings. And so that's how I've approached the course. So each of the modules takes up a particular kind of issue that has been, that is situated in the literature and is something that is enacted in schools in very specific kinds of ways. So as I'm going to, in a moment, be going through the eClass page so that you can have a look at the page, see how it's organized, see how the course is organized, and so on. But I would also ask you to, when you open up the page, to look at the syllabus, go through the syllabus, and if you have any questions ahead of time, please feel free to ask them so that we have an opportunity to talk about any of the issues that might arise for you. You're not required to buy a text. Everything is linkable. So all of the readings are within eClass, and you can just click the link and it will open the readings for you. In some cases, you'll also have some videos that you'll be watching, and that will enhance the kind of content that's in the readings. So that's how it's organized, and I hope that you'll find that useful. Now, I understand, first of all, that you're busy, extremely busy anyway, usually, but particularly so because of the current circumstances that we're dealing with. But also, this is a compressed course, so that means that you're doing full course in half the time. So I've tried to be sensitive to the ways in which I've organized the assignments, the readings, and so on. So when you open up the syllabus, you're going to see 4 readings for each module, and you're going to think to yourself, oh my goodness, I cannot do 4 full readings and all of the other stuff that goes with the course. And you're absolutely right, not in a compressed course at least. So I'll be talking, when I open up the page, I'll be talking about how that's organized. But just be aware that you are only required to be to look at each of the readings and get an idea of how they're laid out, the main ideas in them, and usually you can get that from the abstract and kind of a quick look through the paper. And then you'll be assigned one of those readings, and you'll be the kind of resident expert on that reading, and you'll be the one that will present that reading to your fellow colleagues in your forum group. And so I'll talk about that in a moment, but I just want to allay any fears that you might have about that. So let's look at the ePage then and see how it's all organized. All right, here is the landing page for eClass. And here you'll see the title, my name, my email, so that you'll know how to get in touch with me. And then all of the modules and so on are down this center section, and I'll be talking about those in a moment. But just to draw your attention to this two side panels, and by the way, this is an instructor's page. Your page may look slightly different, but you'll have the same kinds of sections. So down here, you're going to see all of the different sections of the landing page. So if you wanted to look at something quickly, you could just hit, for example, module 3 here, and then you'll be able to, that would take you directly to module 3, and that would open it up for you. So that's one thing. The other side is some various things that might be of interest to you. So you've got the calendar, you've got activities that are coming up, announcements, that sort of thing, upcoming events. So for example, eClass maintenance outage is going to happen on June the 20th, you know, that kind of thing. The discussion forum, module 1 should be completed by Sunday, etc. So you can kind of keep track of some things over here. Some people pay attention to it, some people don't. So I'd rather have things in my own calendar so that I can keep track, but nevertheless, it could be helpful to some of you. But the main part of this, of course, is what goes on along or down here. So the first section, 10 things to know about your instructor and course information, is here. And in that, when you open that up, you'll see a bunch of information about me, 10 things to know about me, just little odds and ends that might be of interest to you. The video where the introductions are and eClass information and so on, a welcome. And this says hidden from students only because I'm going to be putting a new video in there, but for most things, they'll be open to you. And then there's the getting to know each other forum. And when you open this forum, and you'll just need to click this, I'm not going to do it now, but you'll just click this and it will open it so that you can put in your own information. And what I'm asking you to do before the course starts is to just give us an idea of 10 things about you, things that might be interesting for other people to know. So there's a little bit of information there for you, and you can fill that in. So it's just kind of an introductory activity so we get to know one another a little bit, and in a more kind of fun way than just simply you know, what we want to get out of the course and that sort of thing, but just some interesting information. And it's always kind of fun to find other people that like the same kinds of things as you do, or do things that you didn't expect or whatever. And underneath that is a copy of the syllabus, and there's a copy in color and there's a copy in black and white, and that's for accessibility reasons, and it's also for printing reasons. So you can look at either one. It doesn't really matter, whichever suits your needs best. Announcements are here. I sometimes use this, but very seldom actually, but it is there if there's anything that needs to go out to everyone at once. Usually I just send out an email to everyone, which reminds me to remind you to be checking your email, your UAlberta email, at least every couple of days to make sure that you're staying on top of any messages that are coming in. I don't send them out that often, but just so that you're sure that you get things when they come. Under that is a section called Submit Your Assignments, and this is the section where you will be submitting your 3 major assignments. You will not be submitting your forum here, but you will be submitting the 3 major assignments. And I'm not going to take time to talk about them now, but when you open this up, you will find the description of the assignment, the rubric for the assignment, and then where you will submit the assignment. And that means that when that's there, everything is on one sheet, so that when you open up your marks, all of your assignment marks are all together. And I'll be putting your forum marks into that sheet as well. And then we have module 1, which is an introductory concepts and theories about gender. So we're going to be talking about the concept of gender itself, how we understand it, what does the literature say about it, what do young people say about it? How do they understand it? And how do schools think about and work towards a more equitable gendered environment in their schools? So this module is a little different than the others. It's an introductory module, and all of the information is there. Now, one of the things you'll notice is that each of the modules will have a strip that has various, when you open it up, you're going to have 2, 3, 4 sections across the top. So when you open that up, you'll be able to start in module 1, you'll start here, and all of your instructions are going to be here. And then that's part 1. And then you're going to do part 2. And then the required readings and watching, because there's mostly videos for this one, are here. So when you open them up, all of that information is there. In Module 2, we'll be looking at gender, power, organizations, and leadership. And this has been a major theme in the literature for quite a long time, talking about how gender, issues of gender are related to issues of power, and what effect that has, particularly for women in educational organizations who are seeking positions of leadership. So that's going to be an interesting discussion, and I hope will be interesting for you in terms of thinking about how these concepts that we often take up, unproblematically, how we can look at them differently through a gendered lens. Then we're going to look at male as a gender too. That is, looking at some of the work that has been done more recently around masculinity and what that tells us about men and boys in schools and in positions of leadership and so on. So this is usually a pretty interesting discussion, because it's not uncontroversial, but it's very interesting. And certainly it's part of the discussion around boys in schools and all that sort of thing. And then we have a section on gender, leadership, intersectionality in schooling. And here we're going to be looking at issues of difference and how difference intersects with gender. So we're going to be looking at, for example, a woman who is a leader in a community school in England. She is Black. She is in a Black community, but the kinds of issues that she deals with as a Black woman, so that intersectionality of race and gender. We're going to be looking at the intersection of sexual identity and gender. We're going to be looking at the intersection of an immigrant and gender. And so all of these issues that are part of our experience in schools is going to be what we're going to be looking at. What do we mean by intersectionality and so on? And there are multiple applications, of course, for all of these. We can only touch the surface of many of these, but they nevertheless seem to engender a great deal of really interesting conversation. The last module is a very different module because you'll be directing it in many ways. And it's basically, the question is, what now? Now that we've had these discussions around gender, and for some, these are going to be very rudimentary discussions because you've done a lot of work around gender. For most, however, I find most people have not done much work in the area of gender. They may have touched on it in a course, but they haven't taken a full course talking about these issues and some of the theoretical understandings behind them. So having done this, now what? What do we do with this information? And how do we think about this? It's also an opportunity for you to share information with others. So by the time you get to Module 5, you'll be working on your final paper, and it will be about a topic that you're interested in around issues of gender and leadership. And so you'll have been started to do some preliminary looking at some of the literature and so on, and you'll be able to present one of the readings that you've come across to your colleagues. So what it will be is an opportunity for you to have a look at literature across a whole range of issues that are important in schools in relation to gender. And this may not make sense right now, but it will make sense by the time we get there, I assure you. I haven't done the video for this one yet, because by that time, I like to do the video later in the course for this one, because by that time I have a better sense of where people are going and the kinds of interests that they have, and I can kind of direct the video more closely to those interests. And then, of course, there's a discussion forum. Now, I want to go back and just look very quickly at the general way in which the modules are organized. In each module, you will find, of course, the bar that gives you all of the links to the various kinds of information that you need. You're also going to find a video, which I've produced for each of the modules, that in the video, I take up the various readings, but I look across them. So I'm not looking into them deeply. I'm looking across the themes that intersect with one another. So it's an opportunity to kind of look at the issues more globally. And then when you look at the readings, you're going to look at those issues then more specifically. So we'll move from the global to the local and back to the global in the forum. So that's basically how it's organized. You'll have an opportunity to explore ideas, and then you'll have a chance to share those ideas and talk back and forth with one another in the forum. And that's basically the organization of each of the modules in one way or another. Always start with this first. It will give you the general idea of what's going on. And the first one tells you a bit about what we're going to be looking at. I'll open that up so you can see what I mean. The first one talks to you about what we're going to be doing in that module. The second is, well, this is a little bit different, but the second usually gives you the readings. And then the third one talks about the forum. So that's how this is organized. I hope that makes sense. When you get to the bottom of these sections, you'll find that there is course resources. You have a course outline, again, that you can photocopy or whatever you want to do with it. Then you have quick guides to APA, and you'll be using APA 7th edition for this course. I know some of you have been using 6th, so we can talk if there's a problem. But for all of you, particularly those starting the program or new in the program, you're going to be using APA 7th edition. And Kathy, who is the Wonder Woman that runs everything in MES in terms of organizing the courses and providing a lot of technical support and all kinds of other things, she's put together an APA overview so that you have a resource that you can use. And then she's also made a chart of the changes between the 6th and 7th edition so that you have that as well. And then you have the library, a citation guide, which is really helpful, and the Purdue University citation guide as well, which is also helpful. So you don't necessarily have to buy the APA guide. There's lots of information here that's probably going to cover most of the things that you'll be doing. And after the course, if you're really interested in continuing with some of the readings and some of the ideas that we've been exploring, there's a whole list of readings that you can have a look at. And in some of the modules, there's also a supplementary readings tab that you can have a look at as well. I think that's it. I think that should get you going with the course. I'll be sending out an email that you'll probably have read by now that will be explaining all of this. And I just really want to welcome you to the course. I'm looking forward to getting to know each one of you electronically at least. And of course, if you're ever in Victoria, I hope over a cup of coffee. So take care and all the best in the course. And if you have any questions throughout the course, please feel free to let me know, because I'm always willing to listen and find solutions with you. Take care.